Please stand, pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, this meeting has been duly advertised in the Parcc Press, issue of November 21st, 2014. All municipal clerks of the townships and boroughs in the Regional High School District have been duly notified, and the requirements of posting and notices have been met. Mr. Boyce, minutes approval. Motion for minutes approval.
Motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
Discussion.
Any discussion on the minutes? As exciting as they were. Seeing none, Mr. Boyce.
Mr. Acetola?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mrs. Canario?
Abstain?
Mrs. Fankhauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Sutera?
Yes.
Mr. Carollo?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes. Okay, next up, communications on file, reports, superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. So we are going to open tonight with the biannual violence, vandalism, and substance abuse presentation. I hate that title, but that is what is written into code. And as you know, from years past, what we like to do with this is not simply throw up a number of statistics there that are often out of context, but we like to highlight some of our student groups across our buildings who really take the initiative to mitigate some of the behaviors that are reflected in this report. This evening we have some students from Marlboro High School and from Howell High School who will take the lead. And at this point in time, I'll turn it over to our Director of Guidance and Operations, Ms. Shana Howell.
Thank you. Yes, I'll be presenting a lot of the statistics, but absolutely we have our students here to talk about many of their initiatives. I am presenting the biannual report of violence, vandalism, and substance abuse. This report is presented 2 times during the year, and tonight we have phase 1 incidents, those that are from September to December of 2014. As a foundation for this report, I really want to applaud the efforts of our administration, our faculty, our staff, our families, who are really so integral to helping us to maintain a safe school environment. We have 6 high schools and close to 12,000 teenagers, so we are uniquely aware of how this impacts our reporting. And our focus as a school district is on teaching and learning and the many lessons related to student behavior that are also a component of this education. And we really do embrace the opportunity to educate and to model appropriate behavior and mutual respect for our students. Incidents are classified into 5 separate categories as defined by the state. And as an overview, for the first phase of the 14-15 school year, there were 18 incidents of violence, 1 incident of vandalism, 5 weapons offenses, 26 incidents of substance abuse, and 8 incidents of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And this year we are again below our overall 3-year average for total incidents. These next tables show each category a little bit more specifically. Violence included 6 incidents of assault, 4 incidents of threats, and 8 fights. There was 1 incident of vandalism in which a student damaged a fence post. Of the weapons identified, there were 2 pocket knives and a box cutter, and in both situations, the students had these weapons on their person. There was 1 BB gun that was found in a student's car, and the weapon that is categorized as used in an offense was actually a small container of mace that was sprayed in a building, but not at any individual person. None of the weapons were used in the context of a fight or an assault. Under the category of substance abuse, the number of students found to be under the influence was 18, and the number of students engaged in possession or distribution is 12. As you can see from this chart, the predominant substance continues to be marijuana. Each of our high schools has a designated student assistance coordinator who works closely with the building administration and our families. And our code of conduct for substance abuse includes educating and really very seriously. Most recently, the Freehold Alliance, who works closely with actually our Freehold Township and Freehold Borough Schools, hosted a community event, Nip It in the Bud, to educate parents and students about the evolving marijuana trends and how to speak to their children about substance abuse. And we're really reliant on those community organizations to assist us in that process. Over the 3-year period, you can see when the peak issues occurred on a month-by-month comparison, and our incidents were relatively consistent across this first phase with a slight increase in October. But again, for the 3-year average, we are down overall. This next chart includes our HIB, harassment, intimidation, and bullying investigations. Our district continues to take a very aggressive approach in investigating any potential incidents, and more importantly, again, is that education component. And that's where we've really seen a shift in reducing the number of incidents. We have designated anti-bullying specialists in each of our schools that also engage in ongoing training. And this past December, we posted on our website the outcome of our required HIB self-assessment. And I'm really proud to say that all 6 of our high schools scored exceptionally high in demonstrating how they meet the requirements of the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. We have a number of proactive measures and intervention programs in each of our schools. All of our stakeholders are involved in that process. Our guidance counselors, our child study teams, our families, everybody really working collaboratively to address any issues as they arise. And for this most recent year, we've actually realized a really successful implementation of our in-school suspension program in all 6 of our high schools. So using that as an opportunity to work with students when they've been suspended in our school on a variety of things, whether it's intervention or even academics. In addition to these programs, one thing that we know for sure is that the most powerful tool is really student-to-student education, where we're promoting a climate of positive peer pressure and having students take responsibility for ensuring that positive school climate. And I'm so excited that tonight we have representatives from 2 schools, Howell High School and Marlborough High School. But all of these students are members of an organization called Lead for Diversity, or AnyTown. And they're going to speak to us tonight about the significant impact that they have on the culture of their schools and highlight some of their initiatives. Marlborough High School representatives.
Thank you, Ms. Howell. Good evening, everyone. It is an honor for both Matt Board and myself, Dr. Godwin, to be speaking before the Freehold High School District Board of Education about the climate in our school.
As members of Lead for Diversity, we understand this personally. The goal of the club we are a part of is to spread tolerance and develop a positive school climate and understand differences. To achieve this, we as a group produce assemblies and even short films that highlight the things in our school and society that may be small yet are still offensive and are damaging to the climate and culture of our school. For example, one of our assemblies showcased the little things that one student would say to another regarding their race, religion, sexual orientation, all things that these individual students don't necessarily realize the power of.
The results of our efforts have been equally surprising, rewarding, and extremely humbling. After a few performances, students have come up to us, telling us that they were related to what we said, and that they were relieved that their hardships were not given a notice. The specific instance we remember was after a bullying performance for anti-violence. A girl came up from her seat in the auditorium and explained how the bullying she had endured in the past. She said that she felt there was no one she could turn to. However, I distinctly remember that towards the end of our conversation, there was a shift in her tone, that of hope, because she finally realized that there were people she could turn to, that she wasn't alone in her experiences, that the environment here was harmonious and that we welcomed her, and this kid she saw solidified her comfort.
And this is the reason that we, as members of Lead for Diversity, do what we do. We were given an opportunity to touch people's lives, to help them out through a bad day, a bad month, a bad year. We take that opportunity and work tirelessly to seize it and make them into more comfortable people in a more comfortable environment. We believe that this club is special for one reason. With a dedicated advisor, Mr. Graham, who allows us to take the reins on what we do, exactly what we want to pursue in our interests. Our peers identify with the club because our goals are similar to theirs, and our goals are being worked on by peers who they work with and they see them every single day.
Right. However, we can't say that we aren't reaping the benefits of this club as well. Overall, Lead for Diversity has made us more enriched and understanding individuals. more able to understand how the girl is feeling sitting down at lunch, or the person who's pretending to laugh at an insult you're towards. We take what we do and we implement it into our everyday lives, whether it's at home or in the classroom, in our day-to-day conversations with our friends and classroom discussions.
And obviously, it has undoubtedly made a difference. I've noticed even my own friends who change their vernacular and change how they speak to one another and how they approach one another. And we believe that as a group, we've definitely headed in the right direction. And that peer-to-peer activities is really what helps instill this positive culture, this positive climate in our school in particular. And as members of Leap for Diversity, we really consider our own responsibility to make sure that this culture and this positive trend remains that way. And we find it really important for it not only to remain this way as we're students at Marlboro High School, but also after we graduate. So it's really important for us to play part of what we're doing. Thank you. So now we'd like to introduce the other officials from Howell High School, so I'm going to go with Zach. So let's give a hand for Zach.
Good evening, and I am anytime at Howell High School, and my name is Zach Olson. This year, one of our biggest initiatives to alter our school community. I'm good. That's okay. Okay, so this year, one of our biggest initiatives to alter our school community climate came through our presentation on the use of the R word and the dehumanizing impact it has on our school community. We proposed to our school via Twitter and Facebook to pledge against using the R word, and we call it in an attempt to eliminate from our vocabulary the R word. This proved to be successful as our pledge tweet received 632 retweets and growing, and our Facebook post has 433 likes. Being a part of the assembly was a very humbling experience. It allowed each of us to experience a day in the life of an individual with autism. Part of the reason why our outreach has been so successful is because of a club run by any tackers and our own any-town supervisor themselves, called Wicked, or What You Could Do. This club is a community service-based club in which we designate each month with a different cause. Doing this helps us to engage students in giving back and helping others. This positive outreach makes everyone feel welcome. For example, in February, we raised money for women's heart disease and by selling heart things. And in October, we raised money for the breast cancer walk by selling pink hair extensions. This year, Wicked has proven to be so successful because of the large participation from our student body, giving us the largest attendance in the club's history. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll be handing this over to Alexa right now.
Hello, I'm Alexa Rizzo, and I'm the captain of the varsity softball team, the captain of the varsity track team, and a member of Howell's NTAP program. Along with our campaign against the R word, Howell High School has done so much more to change the climate of the school in a positive way. This can be seen in the creation and participation of Sets for Scars. Sets for Scars is a student-run volleyball tournament whose proceeds will help local organizations raise suicide awareness. This year's tournament will be the first of many to come. With the help of Wicked peer leadership and the generosity of our staff members at Howell, the success of the tournament is guaranteed. On June 2nd, over 200 students will be participating in our tournament, and our bleachers are expected to be overflowing with supporters. Local newspaper reporters will be covering the event as well as our own yearbook committee. Our mission is not to use the tournament as a fundraiser, but to use it as an eye-opener, something that will positively impact the minds of our youth. And proudly wearing our Sets for Scar t-shirts the day of and advertising our tournament to the best of our abilities, we hope to touch as many students as we can. The event has yet to take place, and yet the halls of Howell have already transformed to a sea of compliments and smiles. We hope that the momentum will carry through the event, influencing our community forever. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Brianna Cagney, and aside from being an Anytowner, I am also the class of 2015's Vice President, a dedicated member of the Drama Club, a four-year course member, and the Howell Varsity Girls Soccer Manager. So, in general, Howell's slogan of "We Are" has created an underlying sense of community. Zach and Alexa Wright spoke about several initiatives that target the entire school community. This year, we started an initiative that worked with students, because every student can make a difference in the culture and community of the school. And I can tell you that it has been one of the most rewarding experiences that I've had. Lunch Bunch is a group intended to motivate seniors who might not be meeting with success. Our focus is to provide peer support and to ensure that they will be walking with us side by side on June 24th at our graduation. This year, 4 students participated in Lunch Bunch, and I am happy to say that all 4 students will be graduating from Howell High School in June. When hearing feedback from these students, they said that all they needed was a little push, support, and motivation from their peers. And not to mention, they enjoyed having a student who could relate to some of their struggles, and someone who was also familiar with what they needed to get done for their senior research paper. With the help of 5 peer leaders, one being myself, we accomplished not only that, but we created unbreakable friendships as well. While Lunch Bunch was designated to meet on the students' lunch periods every Friday, majority of the students took full advantage of this opportunity, and they met 4 out of the 5 days during the week. Now, even though Lunch Bunch focuses on a specific group of individuals, I believe that if we can impact at least one student's life, then we have succeeded. One of my favorite quotes is by Gandhi. It says, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." As simple as it sounds, every student has the ability to create a climate that leads to a safe school and that helps prevent instances of violence and vandalism. Through the actions that Zach, Electra, and I have stated, I believe the students of Howell High School have succeeded in doing just that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, folks. It's interesting. It's always more powerful hearing from the students directly about some of the work that you're really engaged in across the district. And it's no surprise that in my travels across the school, I've run into these groups repeatedly, because these are student leaders who really have taken a vested interest in improving their school culture, but really taking the impetus to not just make things better, but also to really take a deep look at what might be causing some of the issues in the first place, and having some honest conversations about those issues. I met with the Lunch Bunch crew at Howell High School, and the most fascinating part of that conversation to me was how close those students were with one another, and that they had walked the halls together for 4 years but didn't necessarily know each other. And then they come together at the end of their senior year, and suddenly they're inseparable friends. And I think that that speaks to sort of the larger human part of schooling that sometimes we forget in all the academic pieces, and that oftentimes it's simply having a circle of friends help support you through things. And so that was fantastic. And earlier this year, I met with the Marlboro group, and we shared some ideas about improving the school culture, and I know that the impetus for that conversation was just to have a discussion with a school group. But what came out of that was, I know that the Marlboro administration, which sat in on that conversation, was actively taking notes from what that group of students were saying, and they're recycling that into their opening teacher workshop, which I think is a powerful testament to respecting the student voice in the school district. So these 2 groups in particular have left an imprint in the school district that will live on long after they're gone. So thank you, folks. You guys can leave if you want. You won't embarrass anybody if you get up. We don't want to keep you for the whole meeting. And, I would be remiss to say, with some of those groups, we have Miss Ennis, Miss Lipson, Mr. Hogan, and Mr. Yang, who are phenomenal educators who take the time to really work with those students as well. So thank you to the teachers behind, who put a lot of hours in before and after school to work with those students. A couple things to finish up my report. We have our annual State of the Schools presentation is slated for June 1st. Christopher, you remember that from last year. We're doing something a little bit differently this year. It's going to be at the Manalapan Municipal Building, And we really want to highlight just some things we're proud of from the high schools themselves. So it's going to be a much less formal structure. And it's like anything else. We're trying something new. We'll see how the evening unfolds. But we really want to allow folks the opportunity to move through 6 stations where we're highlighting some student work and some of our student programs from each high school, and sort of teachers and students will be talking about their particular program. And what we did was we aligned things to the 4 C's for 21st century learning. And if you've heard me before, the 21st century learning thing is a little bit dated. It's 2015. It's enough of calling things 21st century. We're 15 years into it. But what we're really focusing on are creativity, communication, critical thinking, and collaboration. And through that lens, some of our programs that highlight that, and really trying to capture a wide range of our programs. I'll be there obviously to go through some of the obligatory sort of statistics of the school district and some of those successes, which we are very proud of. But we really wanted a more tangible interaction between folks who come out that evening and some of our students and staff. So that's June 1st. We also this week have one of my favorite nights of the year. It is the Count Basie Awards. And with 6 high schools, our plays and musicals and performers are well represented at those Basie Awards. And what that evening does is it basically highlights high school exceptionalism for student performances throughout Monmouth County. And we have some schools, I think, leading the charge this year. I think Freehold High School has 17 nominations. So just to give you scope, Howell High School always has a ton, but all of our high schools have nominations. And it's a terrific evening where you also get to see some of the performances, or tidbits of performances from other high schools across the county. And our high schools are often showcased as well. So all the principals go. I go every year, and it's a nice honor. So that's Wednesday night this evening, this week. A few other things, interesting developments in the Senate Ed Committee today. A number of bills related to Parcc Testing. We'll see where that goes. They'll go to the Assembly now. From our feedback, looking at the Parcc Testing, there was the PBA and the end of year assessment this year, which was 2 testing windows. There's a lot of pressure from school districts to move that to 1 testing window as we move forward. The state of Ohio is actually sort of leading that charge. And remember, the Parcc Consortia is in 11 different states. So how that unfolds will be very interesting to watch. We've been very communicative with what we think would be effective ways to temper some of that impact. And I'm hopeful that the Department of Education is listening, and we'll see when the plans are released for subsequent years in what direction we're going to head with the Parcc Testing. And then as a school system and as a school system leader, we will certainly posit our comments appropriately depending on what that direction may be. I'll turn over for
Next up is
committee
the
reports.
Board reports. Before I do that, very quickly, I just want to say how proud I am, and I'm sure the rest of the board is, of the kind of students we have in this district. That presentation was excellent, and I want to thank you, Mrs. Howell, for helping them out. Okay, the board reports. First up is curriculum and instruction.
Okay. Back on May 4th, we had a meeting at Manalapan High School, and there were really 2 subjects of the meeting. First one really dealt with commitments. Last year, we started the Marzano evaluation model. So the administration had to examine the district's instruction model and how it worked in conjunction with teacher evaluations. And the guiding principles were sent out to teachers, and they were surveyed, and they got back to us with hundreds of snippets and where they fit into areas of focus, such as teaching, lesson planning, and assessment. So there were some guiding principles that came out of this. The first one was prioritizing the teaching of students over the teaching of content. The second one was providing multiple avenues of excellence in all of our courses and programs. And then third, seeking to correct rather than hide from our deficiencies. And the teachers gave us classroom commitments, and then the board members at the meeting discussed what they thought were most interesting. Me personally, I found most interesting with respect to providing opportunities for students to collaborate on solutions to real-world problems and linking assessments to goals for individual student growth. The second subject of the meeting had to do with the application process to the magnet programs for school year 14-15. So what we did at the meeting was we looked at the numbers behind the applications, how many applications and what percentage were successful. These numbers are very volatile from year to year. We've actually had 2 straight declines in the amount of applications, and then to wrap up the meeting, we just went over the entrance exam data for all the towns in the district. And just to reiterate, the entrance exam is really a cognitive skills test. And so we just went over those 2 issues at that meeting. And that's it.
Okay, next up is Finance Committee, and Michael, that's you again.
Yeah, well, actually, you know what? We haven't had a Finance Committee meeting since our last board meeting, but we have one scheduled for this Thursday.
Okay. And last up is Policy Committee.
Heshy, I'm here, good, ready to go. On May 4th, the same night that Mike and his crew were meeting, we were meeting right downstairs. It was a very long spent evening. We covered quite a few policy revisions and adaptations. This is the first read. I believe there's a packet on the back table there. But we did cover items such as attendance, board officers, bus drivers / bus aides regulations, high school graduation requirements, public records, and substance abuse. And we kind of cleaned up the language with some of the definitions of what substance abuse is. First read.
Okay.
I know Mr. Sampson wanted to add a couple things to that as well.
One additional note to that, when we uploaded the policies, you know, as we go through these policies in the policy committee, there are a number of evolutions of the policy as folks provide feedback. So with our graduation requirement, we uploaded the next to last revised policy that has a strike-through that should not be a strike-through. So we'll alter that when we have the final read. And one other note, there's a board policy update there that the boards now have the option of conducting the self-evaluation or not. You know, my recommendation as superintendent, I certainly don't dictate to the board, but in discussing it with the board would be to maintain the self-evaluation. It's a voice for board members, especially with 9 distinct voices from multiple communities. And I think it's an important tool for folks to have a voice, and that ends, you know, usually that's conducted by June 30th of each year.
I just want to say how nice it is to hear the superintendent say that he doesn't dictate to us. Okay. Next up, we have public participation.
One quick amendment, if I can.
Mr. Boyce.
G3, appointments for Robert Schweitzer. Just note a change in the effective date from 9/1/2015 to June 30th, 2016. So as amended.
Okay. Next up, we have public participation, and we have one name, John Edmonds. Mr. Edmonds, the floor is yours.
Okay, try to use technology things. So I'm John Edmonds. I'm a resident in Alpha, New Jersey. Have a family here for many years, and I represent the food service workers over here to my left. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. We did have all of us from time to time have been able to come here the last half year and be able to come before the board. And I want to start off again by saying thank you for last year for making sure that the food service company, Tony, offered them jobs. Because if you guys didn't do that, they wouldn't be here working. So we definitely appreciate that. And, you know, we did come here sort of about a month ago, and we let you kind of know what it is that's happening to us right now. And since that time, it's actually been going to work. So, as I mentioned to you before, here's the update, basically what I struggled with. So, these food service workers over the past year, when they came in, what now considered managers, even though they're doing the same exact work that they were doing here when they were represented, when they were employees of the board, when they were employees of Sodexo, Chartwell, whatever other companies that we've had here. They've had no wage increases for 2 years. They lost the 24 paid days off. No health care coverage for full-timers. 13% reduction in pay, which actually takes their wages back to 2008 numbers. So with this all being said, we've been negotiating with Pump 20 for 10 months, and we've had over 10 bargaining sessions. We're actually in mediation right now. The mediator has attended 3 meetings, and it hasn't really progressed. You know, we actually had a file. I have copies that I can present to you either today or I can mail it to you. That we had to file 2 unfair labor practice charges against Pump 20 negotiations. The first thing we had to do was retrogressive bargaining, meaning that they offered something and then they take it back. So today I'll offer you, 3%, tomorrow 2%, or I'll offer you 5 days and then I'll pay out for the 5 days and then I won't pay out for the 5 days. So retrogressive bargaining. The second one is for direct bargaining with the food service workers. So they sent a letter to these ladies on the 12th, basically telling them what they offered to us on our negotiations on the 11th. And although 90% of it was what we actually discussed and what was proposed, they left out some key parts, and they changed some of the offer in there. So that's considered direct dealing or direct bargaining with people. All we want is a contract in place, like we've had for many years. And right now, if Antonio keeps on offering and changing their offers, like on a negotiation basis once, twice a month, it's impossible for me to get a contract here. And we really don't want to keep on coming back to you and asking for support. But we feel as though we have no choice to do that. And just a couple other things we want to mention to you is that we had hundreds of people in the community make phone calls to Pump 20 over the past couple of weeks, discouraging them to treat these people fairly. They are, by the way, obviously members of our community, including their children, grandchildren, and family members. And we've also had petitions, which I can also send you copies of petitions. We had teachers, students, and everybody in the community sign up, hundreds of signatures from that, basically saying that they're not being treated fairly and that to help them get a contract for better benefits and pay. So I'm not coming to you guys as, okay, we lost a day here, or, this is 2015, we know how bargaining is these days, but when you come to the magnitude of what they lost, it's a lot. And we do know that the board has a contract with Pump 20. We do know that it renews, at least we were told, it renews every year. And we know for at least this year it had a $25,000 guarantee to the board. And so we said to Pump 20, well, what if we do better than $25,000? What happens with the money? Because right now, they feel, and I'm not saying it's a fault of Pump 20 or you guys, but they feel as though when Sodexo left, they lost so many different benefits that now we're coming into this, and we're like, okay, if you make more than the guarantee to the board, then why is it that you can't give us more benefits? And then they use the excuse that, well, the board may need the money to, run the lights or pay the custodians or what have you. So we don't think that was the right thing to say, and we want to make sure that everybody here on the board is aware of that. And we are not asking for anything near than what we had. We know that ship has sailed. We are asking for tweaks here and there. They're trying to tie in, bundle, and try to move things. So if I have one proposal, they'll agree to it, and they won't agree to it, or they'll change it, or they'll say, okay, well, we want to delete other things in the contract. It's just totally unfair to these people right here who are not community. So, that being said, I would like to either have a conversation with some of the board off-site or now, and basically, understand from the board, am I on the ball of what they're saying to us, because we feel like we're being shafted over here. And if they're taking money that they could possibly give for anything, whether it's an extra day off that we lost so many days, or if it's an extra pay, or whatever it is, that they should be able to do that. And you're saying that, no, we're simply not going to do that. That's what's in the budget. But they want a 4-year contract. So it's like, which one is it, right? You want a year deal or do you want a 4-year deal? Either which way, all they want is a contract. board has worked with us in the past, and perhaps we can work together to try to figure out a way where we can actually get a contract.
But if I may respond, Mr. Moses, Mr. Evans, thank you for your comments. The board is not going to publicly weigh in on the status of your negotiations, nor is the board going to publicly comment on the status of the ongoing negotiations that you're pursuing with Pomptonian. So in terms of a sit-down meeting or eliciting support from the board is not going to engage in that. We did investigate and discuss the issues that you raised at the last meeting. It is the board's position that those are matters that will be addressed through bargaining. And it sounds like you are in the midst of bargaining. You are very apt in doing so. You noted, I noticed that you have already filed for mediation. You have pursued 2 unfair labor practice charges in terms of bargaining outside of the session. So the board is certainly not going to weigh into that, because I do feel that, candidly, some of the comments you're making here and some of the statements could possibly be construed as bargaining outside of the session. So the board is not going to be a party to that. I have to protect them as you have to protect your members. That does not mean that the board is not appreciative of the work of the individuals that you represent, and that do not view them as non-essential individuals. It's just, this is a matter where it is between Pomptonian and their employees. So we thank you for your comments, for keeping us in the loop, but the board is not going to publicly engage or weigh in.
I appreciate you responding, in as much as that's not really necessarily what anybody wants to hear. And I just have to say that these individuals, again, are members of the community. And I think it's more than, even though I'm here as a spokesperson, I'm here as a bargaining rep, I'm also here as a member of the community. And I feel as though, we want to extend ourselves, we don't want to keep on wasting the board's time. But we wanted to make sure we had a directive of what you can or can't do, so we do, again, appreciate what you said. It's unfortunate that that's the way it is, but, I guess we'll have to continue to do the way that we're going to do this. And I'll just share this one more thing with you. They want new hires to come in making substantially less money than what they're even making now with a 13% reduction in pay. And, we look at other contracts that are out there, and we look at people that are doing similar work to what these people are doing. And we're getting the brush around as though, I can get somebody for $9 an hour, so that's almost 50. And these women, and occasionally have a man, that they have worked here for 20 or 30 years, okay? And they've worked their way up to wages just like any one of us standing here today. And as much as maybe the board can't do anything, we just want to make sure that us as members of the community are voicing our opinions. So again, I appreciate you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Okay, we have the agenda, and it runs from G1 to K2. I'd like to take the agenda in one shot, please. We need a vote?
Yeah,
A motion?
A motion and a second to approve the agenda.
Right, a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
Second.
Second. All right, there we go. We have 2 seconds, which is better than one person.
I defer to the guy in the gray hair down there.
I think that's Sam. Okay. Second was
Oh, no, it was
A
Jen.
tie.
It was Jen with the motion.
Jen and Sam. Okay.
And there was a tie.
My apologies.
No tie.
Okay, discussion? Is that correct, Mr. Boyce?
That's correct.
Thank you. Discussion on the agenda? Seeing none. Mr. Boyce?
Mr. Acetola?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes, except for K1, I would say yes to everybody except for Mr. Sampson. I will abstain, present, taking no action.
Thanks, Bill.
Ms. Canario?
Yes.
Mrs. Fankhauser?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Sutera?
Yes.
Mr. Carollo?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes, and I would like to kick the conversation over to Mr. Sampson.
So I'd like to ask Mr. Braverman to stand up as the new principal of Howell High School. So as many of you know, Mr. Braverman's been in the acting capacity since January 1st. He's a longtime assistant principal, almost a decade at Howell High School, knows the community inside and out, and has done an excellent job. And there's no better indicator of the work that someone's going to perform other than the work they actually do. And so for 5 months now, Mr. Braverman's been acting principal at Howell High School. It's been a seamless transition from the district's perspective. He's got some real exciting ideas over there, and is a team player, and really, has his heart and soul invested in this district. And what we've found as we go out, and school districts often do on their intergalactic searches for candidates, is that oftentimes the best candidates are the ones that you've groomed under your own wing. And that's certainly the case with Mr. Braverman. And I know he's going to do excellent things as the high school principal at Howell, and we're happy to have him aboard as a principal. But you report directly to me now, so that's a game changer. Congratulations, Jeremy.
Personally, I'd just like to say, known Jeremy for a long time. I'm just so happy that he's taking over the reins at Howell High School, and it is so nice, after being involved in this district for 4 decades, to see somebody promoted from within.
I know, really.
All right, next up we have old business. We have any old business? Any new business? Seeing that there's no new business, we need a motion to close the meeting.
Motion.
Thank you, Liz. Second by Sam. All those in favor?
Aye.
So shall ye say, so shall it be written. For coming.